everybody. It's 6:30 p.m. Today's Tuesday, October 18th, 2022, and this is a regularly scheduled meeting of the Marquette Township Board. We are going to stand and say the pledge.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Roll call, Randy, please.
Trustee LaRue.
Here.
Trustee Winslow.
Present.
Trustee Everson.
Here.
Trustee Marks.
Present.
Treasurer Johnson.
Here.
Clerk Rattari is here, and Supervisor Duran.
Here.
Staff present is Manager Kangas, our attorney Roger Zappa, Fire Chief Dan Shanahan is here, and on Zoom we have Superintendent of Public Works Lenny Bodinas.
Okay, thank you. Any public comment? Did we get any emails?
We have not.
Okay. One of those. Okay. So tonight's consent agenda consists of approval of work session minutes of September 29th and October 11th, and the regular meeting minutes of October 4th of 22. Bills payable in the amount of $158,183.81. No other reports or committee reports. I apologize for putting that whole packet in for the Solid Waste Authority. I didn't mean to do that. I usually pick out 6 or 7 pages and I grabbed the wrong file off of my desktop, so you got the whole shebang.
We did.
Yeah, sorry about that. You'd also got the library minutes from Peter White from September 27th and the September 22nd or of 2022 financial report.
Move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Support.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. I'm not aware of any conflicts of interest. So we don't need to make any changes. Approval of the remainder.
I move to approve the agenda as, the regular agenda as presented.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. All right, first up, Tim, I didn't even see you there, I'm sorry. We've got, is it Detective
It's the
Lieutenant?
hideout, actually.
Yeah, probably.
Detective Lieutenant Tim
Lieutenant.
Scholander with
Okay.
the Upset Narcotics team. So I know I had forwarded on my annual report from
Everybody's got it.
2021. I do want to thank you for your contributions last year. Those are huge amounts for us. And the way I look at the Upper Peninsula is that the Upset team is a police agency within itself, but we get all our people from all of these different agencies across the UP, and we go where people need us, So I think I explained last time, it's pretty, it's always impressed me that agencies like Escanaba will give a body to Upset, and they'll say, go help the community. And then today have Upset detectives working up here, actually. We had some training going on, and I'll tell you that there ended up being a fugitive at large that we identified in the area, and the detectives are out there right now taking care of that. And it just so happens all of my detectives from our South team in Escanaba were up here doing the same training. That's why I'm a little not as professional as usual. But they're out there working hard, and that's what they do every day. They go at an instant where the community needs us. I will just discuss a couple of cases and ones that are already through the whole criminal court process. But there's one case I want to talk about. It's a federal case, which is pretty interesting, which involved a gentleman that lived in Marquette, 3 gentlemen that lived in Marquette. We intercepted a package containing 1.5 pounds of ecstasy. 1.5 pounds of ecstasy coming here in Marquette. We intercepted it. We identified the suspect that was actually going to receive it through the Postal Service. We ended up doing what we call a controlled delivery. They received the package and accepted it from the postal investigator that was working with us, and ultimately they cooperated and said, I actually was receiving this package for another person, and we ended up going to that person's house. Come to find out, we went to another person's house after that, and we identified a group of individuals that was distributing a large amount of not only ecstasy but cocaine throughout the restaurants in the Upper Peninsula, in the Marquette area specifically. And it opened us up to really what type of drugs were being distributed through just, you know, the staff members that work at a lot of the bars and restaurants in the Upper Peninsula. This gentleman was actually ordering this stuff from China. He had gone to China on multiple occasions, received it. We seized $78,000 from him as well, from bank accounts. That money, since it was a federal case, ultimately was forfeited, and it goes through a forfeiture process through the federal government. And you know, it was a pretty interesting case. While that case was going on, it just so happens that I was helping my Upset West team in Houghton a few months later, and during that search warrant, we ended up talking to the female, and she ends up talking about how whenever they bring up drugs from Detroit, they stop at Marquette. And what do? They stop because they know a few of the dealers that are restaurant workers in Marquette, and they bring up cocaine, and then they get ecstasy in return. So here's the web that kind of people know about, and it's you know, through their employment, and they get hooked on it. And if you look back and see what happened at Cafe Bodega, and there's 2 people that died there from fentanyl overdose. These are the types of issues that we really deal with, and we help these other police agencies try to solve these crimes. We've helped them with open homicides that are still pending right now, that have occurred, or the victims are from Marquette Township specifically. And they're just long, in-depth investigations, and you know, we attack them with a group of individuals that just give up a lot of their personal time and work together to just kind of solve those in-depth investigations. So the annual report, it's got a lot of good numbers in there. You know, if you look at how many felony arrests, how many arrests, and it doesn't say how many arrests in there that are related to like federal cases. But there's some good numbers in there. But what you don't see is that drugs, if it says a lot of drugs are arrested in Iron County, that's okay. That's a good thing that we're arresting people in Iron County. Why? Because I've had people from Iron County bring drugs to Marquette. Okay, so whenever I make a drug arrest, and it's because we're looking at the source, it's not a bad thing, right, that the arrests weren't here. So my point behind that is all the stats, they're spread out in different ways for a lot of different reasons, all right? But you have to look at it as a whole. Drugs don't look at county lines or city lines. They don't care about if it's in the Upper Peninsula or not. What we care about is we make those arrests. You should care about that those arrests are occurring in the Upper Peninsula, and we're minimizing the amount of drugs that people are able to use, and then they can get some help and relief. I'll say that's why we work really well with Great Lakes Recovery, North Care Network, and other opioid the Families Against Narcotics chapter, which has just recently started up here in Marquette, and trying to help them identify whenever we see increases in overdoses of what they are going to expect in those facilities. So we want to keep doing that work. We're asking again for your help with a contribution. That small dollar amount, you know, I look at it and I say, okay, $5,000, and I know that's a lot for some communities, but you know, it cost me $165,000 to $85,000 some years to cover the cost of what we do as a whole. And that's not even counting the upset salaries that are being paid by those other agencies that just put people on upset. So I'm happy to answer any questions. I've got a million stories, but there's only so many I can share some days. So I do thank you for your past contributions, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Dan, go ahead.
Any of the dollars that you collect in a bust, are you allowed to keep those dollars locally? And can they be then used for your team?
Yeah, it's a good question. So forfeiture, there's 2 different types of forfeitures laws that we kind of are a part of. One, the state forfeiture system, and a federal forfeiture system. When it comes down to the state forfeiture laws, the laws changed back in 2019 to somewhat restrict and limit some of our forfeiture money that we're able to seize. But yes, ultimately the answer is yes. If I end up arresting someone who I can prove is delivering drugs, I can then seize the $1,000 of cash that is their income from those drugs. And they have 20 days to file a civil claim saying that I really think that's my money and you shouldn't be able to seize it. After 20 days, if they don't make a claim, that money is called administratively forfeited. I get the prosecutor to review our probable cause, and then we're able to take those funds, deposit them into our upset adjudicated account, where then we can use them for, you can only use those things for equipment, you can't use them for salaries or those types of items. We typically end up going back into our fund where we use them to pay for our surveillance devices, which are yearly subscriptions that we have to buy through certain companies, and for vehicle costs, because those are my higher costs. When it comes to the federal forfeiture system, the feds actually seize the money. That if I seized it and it's $10,000, they'll actually take it from me. I'll turn it over to them, and I have to request from them for those funds to be dispersed back to me after the federal forfeiture process has ended. I can only receive 80% of that money.
Does that work very often? I mean, feds like to keep their money.
Well, actually, since we have our federal partners right in the office with us, I have agents from ATF, DEA, we work with the FBI. You know, they rely on, those teams rely on our work for their statistics. They're partners with us, but when I start a state investigation, the DEA see the opportunity to take it to a federal level, and they say, hey, we want to help you further this case because we think we can help you identify the source in Detroit. So we're going to start right here at the ground level with you, and we're going to help you build it up, and then we're going to continue to go from there. I've got cases that you would not believe have crossed the country and then some, when working with our DEA partners, our ATF partners, our Bureau of Indian Affairs partners. Cases out of Puerto Rico, cases out of India, cases out of China. So it's pretty impressive. As far as getting large amounts, we're not in a source city. We're in Marquette. I'll give you some general ones. It's pretty typical for me to seize anywhere from a few $100s to $5,000 to $6,000. But that's, I mean, you can see my forfeiture income. It's hit and miss. You can't base your income off of forfeiture because you don't know what you're going to get every year. You don't know what type of cases you're going to handle. You might be handling cases that involve prescription pills, and these people have no real source of income, and they're just using whatever healthcare expenses will cover the cost for prescription pills to buy and sell. So it's case by case basis when you look at forfeiture, and we have very, very strict policies set aside from the state laws on what we really seize and what we're going to administratively forfeit. So.
I was talking to a friend of mine today, as a matter of fact, about this, and he said one thing that irritated him the most was when you guys do a bust and you take the person to jail, and I'll say 2 hours later they go into Menards and here's that same person that just got busted out walking the streets.
Their frustrations are our frustrations,
Yeah.
times 10. I can't control the jail population. I can't control the criminal justice system. I have a box that I unfortunately have to work in. I think some of our frustrations are right there with you. There were some recent changes in some of the criminal justice laws just to try to reduce the amount of people in prison. And also, you had now adults, it used to be the age of 17, and now they bumped it up, it's 18, right? And on top of that, there are some crimes that they are not going to lodge on in certain areas. So the other issue is that with COVID, it's left us where people are lodged. They're concerned about their safety still with COVID in a in a jail setting. So they get them immediate bond and kick them loose. So I understand your frustrations, they're ours too. It makes it actually very challenging for us to do our work.
I commend you. I would not be able to do that. I'd be, I've got a little bit of a temper. Hey, come on.
Maybe I could use you on the team then, so.
And just to see these people walking around after you just put them in jail would just drive me nuts.
Yeah, it's frustrating because, you know, we base a lot of our work too on cooperation, and you want to, my goal isn't to arrest every addict out there. My goal is to arrest the dealers, to give these addicts some relief. And when you end up coming across somebody who's an addict, but is also dealing to some extent to support their habit, you know, they're dealing drugs, so there is an arrest that's being made. And you want to try to work with them to say, you know, we don't want to see you go to prison. We want to work with you, and you're going to have to cooperate with us on this investigation. And there's no fear for them to want to cooperate because they can just go to jail and sign a released on zero bond and be right back out. So it makes it very challenging to find what we call cooperating informants in a lot of our cases. And that's, every county is different. Marquette County is extremely challenging.
Do the judges have anything to do with that?
No
comment?
Yeah, I think you
I
have
don't
to
wanna put
look.
you on the spot. I didn't mention
Well,
any
no,
names.
that's okay. There's, you know, there's several different parts of the system that I think make it challenging for our specific type of work. Does that mean that I don't see huge gains? I'll tell you, I used to be a trooper down in Benton Harbor, and I'm from the UP originally. And when I went down to Benton Harbor, it was you didn't feel like you're ever gonna make any headway, right? You're always out there just arrest after arrest after arrest. And here when I make an arrest and the team does something good and they arrest a dealer, I see the positive result in it. I see Great Lakes Recovery saying, whoa, we just got 3 people that were gonna come in and wanted treatment. What is this from? Well, it's from our arrest. Or else I see where an informant will say, the price of drugs just went up because you busted this suspect, and he's the one that had the most drugs in the county. And now, the next guy who had the second most amount of drugs, he's charging everybody a couple $100 more. So you can see the impact up here, and that's what's pretty impressive to me.
I mean, that's gotta be rewarding when you can see an impact on it.
It is.
And I commend you for your work and appreciate everything you do to keep
Thank you.
us safer.
Thank you. Any other questions?
So, you know, one of the most important things that we can do is provide education to our young people through the school systems or through the, I don't know, whatever systems we provide. So are you part of that?
I am. So, you know, COVID kind of rattled us a little bit with some of our education and public education. As far as what we've done in the past, and hopefully we're going to pick it back up once everybody kind of gets over the COVID fear still. I know it's somewhat still there. But I'll give you an example. I used to do, between me and my 2 sergeants just in Escanaba and Marquette, we used to do about 75 drug awareness presentations a year. That's in schools. I've got one coming up in Waters Meet because they're having an education week because they had a couple of overdoses over there. So I'm heading there October 24th. But we used to do that in Marquette County pretty regularly. I worked with Stacy Raskin, who used to be the community service trooper in Marquette area, Nagani Post. She's since retired. They're looking at replacing her position, but we would kind of tag team in some of those areas with stuff across the UP. I would speak at Rotary clubs. I was going to Kiwanis groups. I teach at Northern Michigan University for their new police officers coming in. I've taught at some of the classes where they've had me as just a special educator for the day for some of the northern students. That's an eye-opener for some of those students that are new to being outside of life at home and what's really out there, and then they're recognizing it because they're seeing it. And then just going into the high schools and some of the middle schools as well. So I know a while back we did some public education nights over at the alternative school over on Vanderboom. Those are things that happened in the past. I hope we can get back to them. I'll tell you that, you know, I came here 10 years ago and there was myself, 2 sergeants, and a couple of troopers and a couple of local officers. And now I have 4 offices across the UP. I've got 4 sergeants, and I've got all the people combined, intel analysts, and all these great federal agents that we have. I'm up to like 32 people, and there's still just 1 lieutenant. So the goal is to try to expand our lieutenants, and hopefully we can give some more education pieces across the UP, as well as increase our administrative assistants. And administrative assistants, I'm not just talking about someone that has the ability to fill out all the paperwork that we do and help us with that, but really get involved in the community as well, because there's a huge education piece. I know I keep in touch with Lieutenant Mark Giannunzio every day. He's our public information officer for the state police, so he and I are trying to tag team just media events and things like that as well.
So I have one other question. So it looks like we did a contribution of $5,000 last year. I know that the computer is a key piece in marketing to our students. Are you working with the people who also, I just listened to 3 state police officers last night talk about phishing and the whole issue that we had in our community. Are you all part of that team?
So, computer crimes unit is what you're talking about.
I think so.
Believe it or not, I bring about 80% of the work to the computer crimes unit, because not only are we going in and arresting these people, we're seizing all of the evidence, right? The evidence is largely, we do everything on our phones these days, we do everything on our computers, even when it calls to drug communication. So we seize those items. We're bringing the computer crimes unit. On top of that, computer crimes unit will be able to take those devices and go through them for the search warrants that we have to identify drug information. And when they identify some other type of, child pornography or some other type of crime, we can extend those further. I bring probably about 80% of the phones in to the CCU unit. So we're looking at, I can speak on this from the captain's, from his blessing. We're trying to expand the computer crimes unit because we're bringing them so much work. They need to be a larger group because there is an underlying problem. They could be a unit within themselves, but we find it a benefit to them, blend them with us also. So we're working on that, but I work hand in hand with Nicole, who's over at the CCU office on a regular basis.
Yeah, it was very interesting for those of you who would like some more information about the whole phishing thing.
It is.
Yeah.
And I know that, there was the suicide of a young man over in Ishpeming, Westwood area, and, there's an interesting case behind all of that. And I can't speak on it, but there is a need for those people to do that work, and there's a need for those investigators to help flourish those investigations. So we're there to support them. We actually help them with all their search warrants because we're the ones that are tactically trained. So that's where we come in as being the assisting of every agency in the UP also.
So good to hear that you're a team working together
Absolutely.
to identify those things out there.
Thank you for bringing that up.
So when you talk, Tim, about not being able to do this or that or work with this group, is that some of the defunding idea, and even with, the jail issue and the bonding, zero bonding, is that kind of all tied into what you're struggling with too?
I think that we're not looking at, my fear is this. My fear is one day I don't have enough money to do the job that I need to do, and I have to call a police agency who says, hey, I've got this really, really bad drug dealer. And my fear is that one day I'll call them and say, I want to come, but right now I've got to focus on this, and I can't make it over there for another week or two, and you're going to have to figure it out. And if my funding drops, because it's not only that I have an operating expense of $185,000 roughly, it's that these police agencies that put a detective on upset, they're paying that person's salary and they're not working on the road. And myself and my first lieutenant, we write a grant every year that's called the Burn Jag grant, and that brings funding in to cover those officers' salaries. But right now, this year, it's going to only cover 25% of their salaries. So for instance, Delta County is going to get 25% of their salary reimbursed for that officer, but that officer isn't working the road. And my worry is, if we don't have a buildup of funds in our operating expense, and the burn grant funding starts to drop down, which it historically has, that those local detectives are gonna start to be pulled back. And then when that starts to happen, my MSP people say, we gotta have to cover the road too. And pretty soon I go from where I've got state and local guys, I have 24. And I could go down to 12 really quick. And I can do good work with 12, but I can't do the work I'm doing right now with 12. And we're doing a lot of work across the UP. I got one more case. A couple of weeks ago, I'm from Manistee. A couple of weeks ago, we ended up doing a search warrant on a person's house and found 3 pounds of crystal meth. 3 pounds of crystal meth from a person in Manistee, okay? The people that were there meeting with them before, they're from Marquette County. So there's a distribution here, and it doesn't always have to be drugs are in Marquette County. There's distribution places all over, and people from the UP go to those areas to pick up drugs. So, like I said, when we make an arrest in Schoolcraft County, it's a win for Marquette County. So I hope you see that, because it's always taken me a lot to convince people that where the stats are is where the activity is, and that's just not the case. So.
Go ahead, John.
Could we help more with your grant applications? Because I think we're more than willing to do that.
I'm going to leave that one to my first lieutenant. He took it over for me this year because I've done it for the last 10 years, and I think that it doesn't hurt to have support with those through letters. It doesn't hurt to show the...
Well, it gives us a chance to say how much we appreciate what you're doing. And if the people that are blessing you on a grant, we can make an impression with them, I think we would go out of our way to do it.
I appreciate that, and I'll definitely ask my lieutenant.
Have them come in. We'll work on it.
That'd be great. Thank you.
Well,
I
Pete?
don't know if you can answer this, but we always wonder, how is Marquette Township as far as the drug business? I mean, we know we got, they're trading into Walmart, parking lots and all that stuff. We know that's good. But internally, can you say anything about how we're doing?
Yeah, I probably come in with the negative side. I mean, I go to do talks at Ishpeming, and Ishpeming probably walks out like they just got their beat up a little bit in the parking lot, and it's not like that at all. You've got good communities everywhere. I live in Marquette Township, and I truly enjoy it. It's an amazing community, good people. It's unfortunate that even in every community you have some bad eggs. And then you're in a unique spot too, because you have so many of the businesses, and we talked about that before, where you have Walmart, you have some of these hotels that end up being a go-to for some dealers who come outside of the area. That's your biggest problem. There are some financial institutions, or you look at Walmart, right? I'll say this, drug dealers don't like to carry cash all the time. The smart ones don't. So what do? They send money. They send money through MoneyGrams and things like that. So inevitably, you're going to have drug dealers utilizing those services to transport drugs. So you're going to have detectives and my uniform. I got a group of guys that I work with also called Hometown Security Troopers. So uniformed troopers that know drugs really, really well, are good at asking the right questions and getting into vehicles and asking questions about their vehicles to then eventually turn those into search warrants into homes. And they do that really well. They work with us on a daily basis. So I utilize those uniformed officers along with my undercover officers to really identify where these people are going, why they're going there, and enhance our cases. Jen Longacre, I don't know if that name rings a bell. I don't think she resided in Marquette County, or Marquette Township, but a regular, as we did a significant amount of surveillance on her, traveling all through this area. She's just got 10 years in federal prison busted her with a pound of crystal meth.
You know, your undercover officers, they do a great job, because we used one of my apartments one time, and he was from Newbury, and you just shake your head. And
Yeah.
we drilled holes through cabinets from the bathroom and put quarters in and everything else. I was happy,
Yeah.
because the guy downstairs had a problem, so.
And, you know, we just, it's unique work. I wish I could go into detail about every bit of it. I know I'd probably get some more laughs out of you and stuff, but it's the unfortunate part is how we're funded and how every drug team in the state is funded. It's pretty much like this. You have to go and have the community support you. Some of them have their own villages in some areas. Some of them are funded solely through, you know, there's a drug team called WeMet. They're solely funded through Ottawa County. Ottawa County pays the bill, and they keep the lights on for them. Houghton County, right now, they pay my rent. They let me stay there for free, and they put a guy on the team, and that's how they're helping fund that team. So, and on top of that, whenever I need extra bodies, I can call them, and they'll come down and help supplement us down here. So, it's unfortunate that that's how these drug teams are funded, but that's what point we're at, and I don't see it changing too much in the future. So that's why I beg for your help in so many ways.
Thank you.
We really thank you.
Yeah, we appreciate it, and thanks for coming down. It's not like you don't have anything else to do either.
And if there's ever a time, I am really, you know, I've done so many drug awareness presentations. I'd love to get back into them with the COVID stuff kind of coming to an end. I am free anytime. I know I've done them at certain townships. We've done it with the fire departments before as well. If there's a time where you want to do a community event, I'm happy to be here. You know, I've done them for schools, and I've done them for parents after school's out with the kids too. So something to think about. My phone's always on. Please get a hold of me. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate you coming. Wow, great information.
It's scary after a while.
Yeah. We'll have to talk about maybe a community forum or something, how we can swing that with the schools or the parents or something next year. Would be helpful, I'm sure. Okay, from one service to the next, hey? Come on up, Dan. Give us your September report, please.
Yeah, again, I'm pretty brief and not as exciting as the lieutenant.
All right,
But,
we love you anyway.
Yeah, that's good, thank you. I will get some boring stuff. We did have a few members attend the UP EMS conference, which is back to virtual, or back to live. It was held at NMU this year. I'll be brief. Call volumes are up about 13% over last year, as you can see. We did have the open house September, the end of September this year. We thought we'd do it a week early, a week before Fire Prevention Month. And it still was rainy and cold that night anyway. But so I guess the date doesn't matter. Yeah, we still had a real good turnout. I thought it went quite well. We had a good time, and it's nice. We had one of the troopers, Mac, and his K-9 partner Dresden was there. They come on Thursdays and they train at our fire hall quite a bit, or once a month. They'll come here or come in the area, and they'll sometimes meet at our fire hall. And it's neat to watch it. They got dogs, and the dog's always a big hit. The township deputy was also there that evening. The Red Cross did barbecue for us, and I believe that was all that was there that night. What else did we have last month? Oh, the grants. We were awarded the Michigan Township Participating PAR Plan Grant, and we did get 3 cameras installed, backup cameras installed on 3 of our vehicles, which that I think I don't want to give it, I'm not going to say the exact percentage, but it's like 90% of accidents, vehicle accidents, especially with emergency vehicles, are from backing up. So the camera is, not a Marquette Township fire, but it does happen quite often, and the cameras, I think, will be an asset to all of us. They keep us a little bit more aware, and they have alarms on them too if we're getting too close to something. The AFG the Assistance to Firefighter Grant ended September 29th. We haven't received an official, not selected yet, but we haven't been, we have not been selected. And with that said, I know last year we discussed briefly about an ambulance possibly. So I just want to put that on everybody's radar, that we do need to discuss that in the very near future.
Dan, the AFG grant, was that for the ambulance?
Correct,
And you did not get awarded?
correct. We have not, we don't have the official notification, but their fiscal year's September 29 or September 30, and no more grants.
And as far as you could see, no grants were awarded for ambulances?
Which I was sort of surprised because of, I thought we'd have a fairly good chance because of COVID. And the EMS run volume going up nationwide everywhere, but I did not see any. And there's a lot, so I'm not saying I didn't miss some. I mean, none in Michigan for sure. I definitely kept track of Michigan, but even over the country, I was spot checking places and didn't see any. But I was sort of surprised.
So we were kind of sitting on the last 3/4 of our ARPA funds waiting to hear on the success of this grant application. I think we have to decide whether or not we want to commit our remaining ARPA funds to this ambulance purchase.
I think that was pretty well our consensus, was it not? That's what we were going to do if the grant was not awarded. So,
I'd like to make it official if that's the plan.
Well, we're gonna schedule.
There will be a bunch of documentation we have to do with Treasury to indicate what it's been allocated to, so.
We'll schedule another work session tonight, and I told you we'll
Yep,
be.
yep. We'll get together, and I wasn't gonna wait to bring it up, then I thought, well, let's
Yep.
at least give you a heads up tonight
Give us all the
anyway.
paperwork, and, because you've got 76% you're up to with, calls, service calls, EMS, right?
Oh, was that's
September?
that number right there varies between 75 and 85%.
But that's
That was
still a
just the
lot.
percentage of last month
Right.
over, yeah. And that's pretty consistent. Actually, could be 2 or 3% low.
Huh.
I think the national average is 83% EMS, roughly.
Now, does that cover your calls around that you pick up too, the city and stuff?
Yes.
That includes that?
That's all EMS
Okay.
calls,
Okay.
yes, yep. And in the city, I usually try and get it in there. I know we went there for a couple of structure fires last month. And we went there for a car fire, happened to be the same night as one of the structure fires. But I did not put, mutual aid, it looks like we went to the city 3 times last month for mutual aid, for strictly
Oh, yes,
EMS.
Yes, okay. Yeah, obviously, that's a big part of what you do anymore.
Oh, it is for every service, and that's nationwide.
How are you holding up in the community as a whole with the powers? I heard just before I left, there was a tree down that was on fire. I mean, a pole was down on a tree and they were both on fire. So, I mean, you've got
I
calls.
don't know why, I thank you BOP, Board of Light and Power, thank you very much. I don't know, we in Marquette Township are very, I don't know if it's because they're pruning keeping the trees trimmed back. The trees that are not healthy, they're being cut by the residents. But we have been very, very fortunate in Marquette Township the last couple of years, just over the last four or 5 years, with the power lines and trees down, trees on power lines, stuff like that. We've had very few calls. Yeah. Yeah.
certainly had enough wind lately to justify.
We
some
were all
calls.
worried, we thought we were gonna be some of our neighboring townships and city, they've been running constantly with that, and we believe, we don't like to talk about it too much, but yeah, so, yeah. No, I think BOP, something's going right for us. The city called this morning and I said, yeah, well, no, township's in good shape, we're good, they were looking for something this morning, I said, no.
But you gotta keep on them, and you gotta bring that up. A couple of years ago, when I talked to them, they said, well, we don't go until a tree falls on the line. I said, well, why don't you cut the tree down ahead of time, do your maintenance? And I see this year that they're running around and they're doing more, so.
Yeah, I think they held, it
Between
seems.
light and power and the county, they're out there cutting this stuff.
Yeah, it seems as though they are.
They got a couple of real bad ones that I hope they get to.
Uh-huh. But no, in the township, we've been fortunate.
Ernie, did you have a question?
I'm looking at your plan reviews from projects and inspections.
Yep.
Did you do any trying at that axe throwing thing at the mall?
I didn't get a chance, and I wanted to. I got to go to the I think it was Assistant Chief Cochran and I went over there on the to see how they were gonna set up. And I go, I do want it, because everybody did that as a kid. You know, and I did want to try that, but when they did the final inspection, I did not get a chance. I did not get a chance to go over there, but I will, yes. And it'll be just for inspection purposes, but yes.
Dan?
Do you think, I mean, you think you want to wait for a work session to, we haven't, I guess I don't understand the reasoning why we shouldn't just make a motion tonight and
You can make a motion anytime.
address this ambulance issue. I mean,
So?
we're gonna do it. I mean, I can't see why we're not gonna do it. We've discussed it so much in the past.
Make a motion.
I guess I'd like to make a motion that we, unless there's a reason, go ahead and support the chief in getting this ball rolling to get a new ambulance in that station over there.
May I recommend that the motion be to allocate our remaining ARPA funds toward the replacement of our ambulance?
Sure.
Or ambulance replacement?
That's what he said.
Okay, motion and support. What else?
Do you have any idea how much it is, John?
I wish I wish the price increase has been
I'm
just
not
like.
talking about the ambulance, I'm talking about the ARPA
How much
funds.
money?
It's gonna be just over 300,000. Three
We are- I
ten,
know,
somewhere around
we are
there.
A lot of
hoping-
ambulance for,
We used to get a lot of ambulance. When we spec'd it out a year and a half ago, and I don't know how I'm trying to be politically correct with the federal government here. We spec'd it out a little bit higher, you know, because we figured a little bit of a price increase. We did not anticipate a 30% price increase. And we put a few more, I should say, maybe not a few, maybe a bell or whistle more than we normally would have. And we spec'd it out at right around 250. That ambulance today, well, I'll let you do the math, 30%. Yeah.
well,
I know. And it's gonna be 2 years to get it.
yeah, but once we lock into a price,
Then correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
so,
And we've been shopping.
and waiting 2 years, I mean, we're gonna have to limp these ambulances.
know.
I hate to see it go for
I
another
know.
month even.
I agree with you 100%, Dan. I do. And
Well, I'm gonna
we've
stand with
looked,
my
and we've had
motion.
vendors in, and I appreciate that. I don't mean to, but yeah, and we've had vendors in, and we've looked, and we're trying to look for demos, because we were hoping to get, we don't need them. Yes, we do want to start off with something that we can maintain, and we know is not going to rust
For a
out.
while.
And, yeah, and we'll keep it for a
Well,
long
we had
time. It'll
hoped
be
to
well
get
maintained.
two, but
That's-
obviously, we're not gonna be able
no,
to do that,
No,
so,
one would be good, and as long as we have a backup.
yeah.
You know,
And
which we
is
do.
there-
We have a
is
good
there
backup.
anything on these ones that we have at the station now that can, you know, like a federal queue, can that be mounted on the new one, or things, I'm just, you know, trying to save some money that way, or, I know we can use the gurneys and
Oh,
things
yes,
like that.
yep.
but-
When we've looked into that, we would try and use some of this, like the gurneys, because those are, believe it or not, the
Yeah.
price is phenomenal. Just that cot use he has, $15,000 to $20,000 for that.
It's crazy.
It is. We are, and this is unanimous, and it's an expensive item, but everybody's going to it. We don't have it yet, but we would on the new one, even if we have to retrofit our old stuff, we would go with the self-loader.
Absolutely.
And
Save
I
on
think that
backs.
will save, yeah, and I think even as the professional, those full-time firefighters will tell you, that's the biggest, you know,
Saves on backs.
it does.
One
And
back,
That's
one
very,
claim.
very expensive to have a guy down for that time for a back, so.
All right,
I think with us allocating the funds for this, we start the paperwork where we have to start moving forward to get everything laid out so we can actually
Get you a number.
get to the point where we can actually not really purchase it, put our order in.
Yep.
Right.
That's-
Order it and pay for it.
Yeah.
Lock
But
in
we
the
have to get
Lock
the,
that price
well, with the
before it
dollars
goes
there,
up.
we can start working on that and get that all taken care of in a relatively I'd like to
Short
say
order.
short period of time, I don't know how long it's gonna take you to do
Hopefully,
all
no
that.
more than 2 meetings from now, you should be able to come back with a tentative
definitely.
purchase order, right?
Definitely. Yeah, I would hope, I would hope so. I would hope
I'm
so,
guessing you'll
yes.
start tomorrow.
Yeah, it's already, we've already been in that process. We just don't have official final numbers. We've been working on it. Like I said, we had 2 vendors up, and we've had some spec sheets come in. We've gone through the vendors and said, we want this, we don't want, those types of things. This is what we need, this is what we don't need. But we don't have official number yet. But I have a good idea, a rough idea what it's gonna
We
cost.
can finalize that all as it goes too.
Yeah, and we can get that done I would think pretty quick. So,
As far as the vendors are concerned, we have less than 300,000 available.
you better believe it. Oh, yeah, I understand. Oh, no. No, oh, yeah, we are definitely, oh, yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. We're shooting for that 250 mark. I don't know if we're gonna be able to hit it. I don't think so. I mean, we were hoping for a demo, but they're just not, they're not available.
So,
You start at
Just-
250.
Yeah, yeah, I know.
so how does this impact the capital improvement program? Because that ambulance is listed on here at 125,000
Right.
over, for 2 years. So
So,
I mean,
The
I
funding
just think we need
mechanism
to
gets
think.
changed to ARPA, and that's okay. We can talk about that when we get to that
Right.
item on the agenda.
That's for
Right.
23 and 24.
Right, yeah, and
That's okay, though.
and
It's
we
not a big
see, as this board, we see this ambulance service continuing in this township. Is that what you're all saying?
Absolutely.
Yes,
Okay.
we're not getting any younger.
Well, I know we're not getting any younger. I know that all this, I know there's lots of discussion to be had.
Yeah.
That's what
There,
I'll
there
say.
definitely needs to be discussion regarding the next replacement, and Dan and I have already talked about it to some extent. We have to sit down with Kim and look at how do we set money aside from ambulatory revenues that's not tied to millages or special assessments that can be set aside for the future CIP replacement.
Yeah, because I.
It's gotta fund itself going forward,
Yeah.
otherwise we can't justify it to some extent, right?
Yeah,
And we think we can do that as long as the ambulance service isn't paying off too much of the building.
and I think, was there not that wildlife fire truck is needing replacement as well? I mean, there are more vehicles that
Oh,
need
there are.
replacement.
Right, and we were,
So
correct.
we need that to somewhat be laid out here, so we as a board know what we're looking at there as well.
Oh, yeah, my
Yeah.
impression was it was a 5-year CIP plan?
I don't know what.
5 or
Yes.
6, yeah.
Okay, yeah,
MTA
and I
says 6.
guarantee you, we will not be purchasing what we need in the next 5 or 6 years.
Right, so,
I wish we could, but
Well-
I don't see it I mean, give me direction, if it's different, but,
well, if you're not gonna use the 125,000 in the capital improvement plan, when you're, I think there's lots to discuss, that's what I'll
there
say.
is, I agree.
Well,
That's the only
the
reason I
numbers
even
in the
mentioned
capital
work session.
improvement plan don't mean the
It was
budget's
involved.
there for it though either.
Correct.
The budget process is completely separate from the CIP process, so.
Correct. But we do have a millage where we are collecting money for apparatus for the fire department, and I'm not sure when that expires, but I just think we have lots to discuss here. And we want to be a safe township, a place where people want to live. People are talking about building houses, blah, 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 blah.
And correct, it was for 24 and 25, that 125,000.
Correct. And there is,
If that means replacing their backup 4 or 5 years from now, and that's what they need to be setting aside, true, but that's his discussion, not mine.
and there are many more trucks that are going to be aged out, I would call them. Right, Dan?
Very true.
Yeah, there's
Yep. Oh, yeah.
20-year trucks in there.
Yep, and yep, yes. I
And
mean,
we're in a much
our-
better
our ladder-
position than many of our neighbors, so.
And you're talking about 1.5 million for that one vehicle.
Yeah, I know it's not, I know,
One truck at a time.
yep.
Well, as long as we have a plan, I think it's better to have a plan than to go in blind, which
Right.
is kind of what's happening with this, the ambulance didn't have a plan.
Well, we sort of did. We really sort of, we did.
It's been discussed.
It's been discussed,
Maybe before I was here.
No, well,
Yeah, it's been.
well, I will say it's been
Years.
discussed. It's been, the truck the fire truck that we just purchased last year, which I'm glad we did. I didn't want to purchase it because I didn't want to have to borrow the money. And we were hoping these vehicles the used ambulances that we had purchased, so it's only gonna take us roughly 2 years to purchase an ambulance of savings. So we thought, okay, let's buy the truck. 2 years, we'll buy an ambulance. Well, now it's gonna take us 2 years to get an ambulance. So we were pretty much on schedule to pay for it. We would have to pay a little more because we wouldn't be paying up front. But, I mean, it's not just, oh, let's go get one. You know, we are trying to plan and budget, but there's only, as we all know, there's only so much money.
Are there that many ambulances being built in the country?
No, they're not being built fast enough. And people are grabbing them right away.
That's what I'm saying, are there such a demand for them, that's why you
Such a
can't get
demand.
them for 2 years?
Yep. They're not building the chassis, that is the big thing. And then as soon as they
We
have
just
these
bought
large
two
companies
used
are
pickup trucks
buying
off the
40
lot.
of them.
Same thing, right? We bought 2 used pickup trucks
Yeah.
off the lot
Yeah?
at prices what we could probably get a brand new truck through the My Deals program with, if they were available. So, I mean, that's the economy we're in right now, unfortunately.
Mhm.
The fire truck that was ordered, how many months ago,
January.
we'll get next year?
Yeah, we hope, yeah.
Right. So, I mean, Chocolate's just, are they getting theirs finally?
The last I had heard was within a couple weeks. And that's been.
And
yeah,
they're
they were
several
on a
months ahead of us.
12-month schedule. We're on an 18 to 20 more, and they're going at 18 months? No, all closer to 2, yeah. They ordered a year before us, and they're just getting theirs. And they were on a 12-month schedule,
Yeah. We needed to be ordering this stuff 5 years ago almost.
yeah.
And who would have predicted this economy?
Okay,
Call for the motion.
Okay,
Yeah.
good questions, good answers.
just a roll call,
You want-
please.
Okay, so requested for roll call, trustee Everson,
Yes.
trustee Marks.
Yes.
Trustee LaRue,
Yes.
trustee Winslow,
Yes.
treasurer Johnson,
Yes.
clerk Rattari is yes, and supervisor Durant.
Yes.
So the motion carries 7-0.
Get to work.
Okay,
Very good.
you can start tonight, you got time.
So in 2 weeks, we'll see something at our meeting, right?
We have
Well-
anything in 2 weeks, do you think, or?
Two meetings,
I
two
think I
meetings
can-
ago, 2 meetings.
Two meetings we give
Two
them?
meetings,
All right.
2 meetings.
4 weeks?
Oh, definitely,
Okay.
definitely.
As soon as you have
Yeah.
it ready to go on the agenda, we'll put it on the agenda.
Yep,
Yeah.
okay,
Even if it's
We'll
just
see.
an update.
okay.
Thank you.
Will do. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Yeah, I knew that was gonna be an involved discussion, that's the only reason I suggested putting it off, but thanks for that.
We have much to discuss on it, I do agree,
Still,
yes, but I just,
with their whole budget.
the whole process, get it rolling.
You did a fine
Yeah,
job.
good idea. All right, Public Works, wake up, Lenny.
I'm here, I'm awake. I guess for the first thing here, we have solid waste. So the first Wednesday rubbish drop-off is closed now until next April. So that's a thing for people to keep in mind. You can still get rid of rubbish, but you're just gonna have to pay the rate that North Country Disposal charges at their transfer station. But we will be reopening again in April. The glass can continue to be dropped off at North Country Disposal for the first Wednesday of the month, so we do have a dumpster there for glass recycling. At other times, they can bring it up to the landfill. So we will have that going right through the winter for the glass. The leaves and the brush drop off, they actually started yesterday, so I was wrong. I thought it started in a couple days, so it started yesterday, and that will be running until the 28th. So that is open during like Monday through Friday, because North Country is closed on the weekends, so we will have that available. For wastewater, we had some power issues at a couple of our lift stations, so we've been getting some ongoing alarms there, voltage alarms and some weird electrical alarms. And when we went there and checked everything out, the voltage was a little wonky. So we had been working with Board and Light Power, and we did get a local control, instrumentation and control technician, went over there, we went through everything. And it was kind of a problem on both ends there, so we were able to get that figured out. So everything seems to be working pretty good here now. We might have one little component that we have to replace in the lift stations. It's kind of reading the wrong voltage. So the voltage is actually fine, but on our screen it's saying it's the wrong voltage. So we're gonna have to get that fixed. It's not interfering with the operations or anything right now, but it's still something that we need to get fixed so we can monitor the proper voltage. We also did have
Lenny?
yes.
Can I just interject real quick? These are the nickel and dime things that we're starting to see on the controls of all of our pumping equipment that we know we have to replace. It's why we filed the notices of intent for funding through state revolving fund programs. Sorry,
Yep.
my microphone
No,
wasn't
that's
on.
fine. Yeah, so that is going to be, as these things start getting older, things, especially electronic components, I mean, they're starting to get up there in age, believe it or not. Those are things that are going to start going wrong, and like John said, they're a little bit more than nickels and dimes, or hundreds and thousands. But that stuff does start adding up here as we start. By the time we have to call technicians in and then get the parts fixed, not counting the overtime that we're spending for our people going out when they get alarmed during the night. So we will start getting more of this kind of stuff as these pumps and the controls start getting older. So John's completely right. That's one reason why we're looking at trying to get some upgrades and stuff to our systems here.
Our asset management plan also identifies it, so we knew that this was coming.
Still on the lift stations, occasionally we do get some heavy grease buildup in our wet wells. It's just kind of part of the business. This is kind of a PSA too for people. Do not dump your grease down the drains. If you have bacon grease or anything like that, throw it in the garbage, because it does end up somewhere, and that somewhere is usually our sewer mains and our lift stations. And so we'll get a real thick layer of grease in our wet wells, and we do have to get that cleaned out every now and then. So we did do that. We got it all cleaned out, and everything's good now. Grease can cause all kinds of issues. It can cause sewer backups. It can get jammed up in the pumps, and it can actually interfere with our level controls, because some of our stuff will get stuck in that big floating grease mat, and our pumps won't be able to know when to turn on and when to shut off. So we do try to keep up on that. We try to keep those clean. On water, we have continued to perform our state mandated water service line survey for lead service lines. We have not found any lead service lines, which is a great thing. Up until probably the last week, we were still getting about 2 to 3 on a day on average. So we've been making really good headway on that. And I believe last time I asked, they were up to about 75 or 85 or something like that. And I believe we have about 230 to do, and we still have a few years to do that. So we're anticipating next year we're going to really put the hammer down. We're going to try to get them all done by next year, and hopefully we'll have that project done. We also did a valve replacement, main valve replacement on Ontario and Norwood. So you might have seen some of our crew out there doing the work there. That valve was actually broken, so when they took it out, it was actually cracked. It wouldn't shut off all the way. So that was the problem with why it didn't work. So we were able to get that replaced. We notified everybody that was going to be affected. We actually kind of gave them a week or two heads up that this is going to be going on, and we got the job done pretty fast. I think the water was only down for maybe 3 or 4 hours total. It might have been a little bit longer, but we did a pretty good job with minimizing the disruption to everybody. When I wrote this, we were busy performing the winterization of all the fire hydrants, but we actually got that all done. So that's basically just making sure that they're all, there's no water in them. That way, then when the fire department needs them in the wintertime, they're not frozen solid. So we did all that. Building and grounds, we went through, we had Andy put new windows at our public works facility. So some of those windows were really bad. You could almost make ice cubes on the windowsill there during the wintertime. So we thought maybe it was a good idea to replace them, and also they didn't open. So that was another reason we did it. When he was actually removing the old windows, looking in the window jambs, there was absolutely no insulation in them. There was like a rubber seal type of thing around the frame. So that's kind of why the cold air was flowing through there and they weren't efficient whatsoever. So we did get some new windows in there, and we got some insulation in the jams. We're also looking at other ways that we can improve the energy efficiency of that building, doing some more insulation, stuffing insulation where there's minimal insulation in the cracks. And we're gonna hope over time that as we start making these investments in there, we can start driving that heating bill down and make things more efficient, just because we know natural gas is gonna keep going up. Also, to our our staff had helped with the mowing and seeding of the wildflower project out there in the median. So I believe the Supervisor Durant was there. It looks like it went pretty good, and hopefully we'll start seeing some flowers here by next year. So we'll see what happens. But it is a multi-year process, but it should look very nice when it's done.
Great.
Any questions?
Questions for Lenny? I see in your bills that you bought some gravel. Would that be for the Starbucks Road? I know that needs tender loving care like every other day practically.
That gravel there was for, we had, actually it's gonna be later on, there's some, we had some patches for hydrant works, the valve that we did. So we had, some of that old stuff that we dug out, we put some new gravel into it, road gravel.
Okay. So is the road
But
commission?
we do try to take care of that road, when we see it getting too bumpy. I think the last time we were probably there was probably a couple weeks ago, so we'll probably have to check it out here, especially after this
Yeah, okay.
snowstorm.
I just wondered. Any questions for Lenny?
Thank
Pete.
you.
Lenny, what was the process of Silver Creek Road? What kind of gravel and that did they put down there?
Double chip
I'm
seal.
not,
That was
What-
a double chip seal over gravel.
I don't know how expensive that is, but it might be a good idea because it's holding up pretty good down there.
You're talking for the Starbucks.
the road behind the Goodwill, you mean?
Yeah,
Okay.
because it don't last 3 weeks if it's a bad storm or something, get a lot of rain, it just hollows out right there.
Yeah.
So if we get,
There's a lot of traffic on there, it really beats that road up pretty bad. You get a lot of potholes and stuff.
Well, and until we know what we're doing with that property, we're not gonna fix that road, really. I mean,
the road's supposed to stay there.
well, it doesn't have to stay in that position. If you remember, when we had interest in it before, the road was gonna go the perpendicular direction. It was gonna come out on 492. So we had talked about, yes, keeping all road there, but it doesn't necessarily have to be in that area. So we didn't wanna pave it in case somebody came in and
Well, if you're gonna have it
developed the
there
property.
and use it, we're gonna have to upkeep it then.
That's why I keep putting it on my list every year to talk about it, to make sure the board still wants to keep that property and not try to sell it again. It's for sale, basically, if we're interested in doing it, but it's just not on the market. So, yeah, it's all up to us. John?
Are we talking about putting gravel down on that road?
It is already kind of dirt and gravel, but I don't know if you've been in there or not.
The
If you
first
come off-
plow that goes through there will put all that gravel up on the sign. That's
Yeah.
what happens when they put gravel down.
He's just kind of filling the holes for right now, and then they kind of drag it, I suppose, or do something to fill up the holes.
That's what they did here in Woods. Put gravel down and put tar on top of that. And they thought that was great until the first plow came through and put it all up on the nice seeded grass.
Yeah.
That was done by the road committee.
I was just, when you mentioned the road and it's not on the market, and I'm sorry, Lenny, for getting off the point here, but would it not behoove us to either put it on the market or put a sign up ourselves saying for sale by owner, something? I just had a comment on that.
Yeah. Let's talk about that in the budget. I've
Yeah.
got it on my list.
Sorry,
Okay.
Lenny.
Anything else for Lenny? Okay, thanks, sir.
Keep up the good work.
Appreciate it, yep.
Thank you.
Great job on the budget discussion, too. It was 70 minutes. You realize that we probably put in 10 or 12 hours in past years with the Public Works budget?
Like I-
70 minutes.
Like I said, staffing makes a big difference.
Yeah, good job. Just had to
Good
give him
decision getting me out of that position,
kudos for
right?
that. And you helped too. It wasn't just Lenny. You guys worked together. Okay, Mr. Attorney, thank you for joining us.
Oh, my pleasure. Well, this month, it was a lot of short one-topic phone calls and emails, rather than big projects. But I did review the sheriff contract that you have in your packet later tonight and made a couple of minor language suggestions, improvements that will be coming out when you have your discussion. The Lake Enchantment Road property drama moved forward quite a bit since I spoke with you last. 8 trailer loads were junk were hauled out, and between 80 and 90 tires, to my understanding, were removed. And there is still more to go, but as you'll recall, it was kind of complicated by multiple owners, only one who has a physical presence on the property. And a couple of the items that are there, one of the owners has indicated that he's going to take care of, and I just spoke with the township planner earlier today, and he was planning to be out there before this, but the weather has kind of put a damper on that, and he'll be out there later this week to just see what the status of that is. But that has moved forward fairly dramatically. The Lost Creek matter is now getting very close to a final product for you to look at, but it's not quite there yet because of other things that have trumped it in terms of priority. We've got 2 minor tax tribunal issues that still need to be worked out, that I think are both going to be worked out in the next couple of weeks. I did take a look at the road commission contract language here a week or so ago, a couple weeks ago. And we also had in the zoning department a novel business proposal where an entrepreneur just contacted the zoning administrator to inquire what kind of issues she might expect as she starts a new business in the township. So we went over some of the I don't think I'm at liberty to talk about what that is, but it's a different type of business. We just talked about what type of regulation we would have as a township over that. And I'm probably overlooking something along the line, but those are things that came to mind as I was jotting down some notes.
Can I supplement that
Sure.
real quick? He suggested that he only made minor comments on the sheriff's contract. One was minor, the other was probably significant. Maybe only a few words, but important enough that it, I think, really gives us the assurance that we will know who's responsible for ordering that next vehicle when it's time. Something that I didn't think of that was caused by a minor change I made. So his contribution was far more significant than what he's leading you to believe. I just want you to be aware of that.
Okay, kudos. Any questions for Roger? We still have to have the discussion on changing the board meeting date and time too, so that'll involve Roger. He'll need to know that. That's gotta happen before the end of the year. Okay, thanks for that. Community linkage, I didn't have anything. Is anybody talking to the public? Are you getting phone calls, emails? Anything you're hearing? That's good, I guess. We start talking about the road again, we'll have comments. Okay, so, speaking of the budget, let's schedule another work session. However soon you guys think you wanna come back.
ASAP.
How's your schedule this week or next week, Randy, for working?
Anything in the afternoon after 1.
After 1, okay.
When?
You wanna try to do something like Friday this week?
How about on Wednesday, the 26th, when we have a joint meeting with the, it's only an hour-long meeting, starting at 5:30. We could start earlier and get this done.
Could start at 3, yeah. and then have us break, and then that's
Wanna
fine.
do that? Does
yeah.
that work for everybody? Wednesday the
26th?
26th?
It's a Wednesday, next Wednesday.
3?
So 3 o'clock?
That works.
So we'd probably look at general fund.
Well, fire
Want me
department,
to call the fire department?
fire department / general
Okay,
fund.
so let's start with fire.
Actually, that could probably be, if no one's got any issues, that could probably be our last session, just fire fund and then wrap up the general fund. So
Yeah.
that's-
Okay.
So I'll make a motion that we schedule the budget work session for Wednesday, October 26th at 3 PM. And the topic will be fire department and general fund wrap up.
Okay.
Okay.
Any seconds?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Okay. Center Street Generator Bid Award. It falls to Mr. Lenny again.
I'm back. So this one here would be for the Center Street generator. So this one was approved, I think, a couple years ago here now, but because of COVID, it kind of got pushed off until this year. We were also awarded a $25,000 Eagle Clean Water Grant to be used against the cost of this project. So it was bid out, and we had 2 bids come in, and the low bid was from Jesse Wright for $89,000. So we're looking just to approve awarding this Center Street generator bid to Jesse Wright.
Okay.
I have a question, Lenny, on that 89,000, is that before or after the 25,000?
So that is before the 25,000. So we have also paid some engineering fees to this, but so the $25,000 grant does go against the actual purchase of the material. So
That goes against the 89,000 then?
yes, correct.
So what are we gonna be voting on
So we'll
tonight?
authorize 89,000.
You would award it for the bid price.
Okay.
And we'll get, will we
Okay.
get reimbursed then, Lenny?
That's your,
No, I want to
Yes.
clarify it at this point in time.
okay.
Okay,
I'll make the motion if you want.
yeah,
Support.
I'll support it, yeah.
Okay. All right. Any other questions? So it's the motion's for 89, and then we'll get reimbursed 25 from Eagle.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Dan.
But if I could interject just one thing though, too, we have also paid some, so just to be upfront with it, so we have also paid some engineering fees, so in reality, the total cost of the project would probably be like 98,000 or something, because we've already paid some engineering fees. And then the actual install for the generator project would be 89,000 minus the 25. That we would get reimbursed.
That's fine.
But we don't have to see you again for the engineering because it's not that much money, right?
Right.
Okay.
Yep, and this project was in the CIP and fully funded before the grant 2 years ago.
Okay. Dan?
We discussed before about what we're gonna do with the old generators. Has anything ever been decided on that?
So this station right here does not currently have one, so this would be a brand new generator. In the other project that we were talking about for like the lift station upgrades and stuff,
Right.
we would also be replacing those old generators if that project ever happened.
Okay.
To answer your question, I don't know that we have clear direction at this time, what we would do with those. They can be salvaged by the contractor, or they can be salvaged by the township, where the contractor removes them from the site, delivers them to Public Works, and then we do with them what we wish.
I just have to believe there'd be some type of a market for them.
Possibly. The one on Wright Street, I don't know so much, because that gets sprayed with salt water pretty much all winter long. But the rest of them, maybe.
Or even, maybe probably not even parts, because I'm sure the new ones are
Oh.
totally different, yeah.
The ones at Bancroft and Huron I mean, they work good, there's no problem with them, but they're older models.
Any kind of mechanical equipment like that, 20 years is pushing it. You just don't want to have your redundant system fail on you when you need it, especially weather like we've had the last 24 hours.
I agree.
And there's probably a,
I was just thinking that there has to be some market out there for somebody to want to buy a generator like that for whatever, even their camp. I mean, they're awful big for their camp, but just for something, when it comes time to that.
otherwise we pay scrap or something too then?
I think we
Yeah,
wait
I mean,
until
it's-
that happens.
Yeah.
It's possible somebody might want to buy them. It's possible that maybe you trade them in or something. You know, there's a lot of different possibilities with those.
Okay, Ernie?
When will you start this project now? How soon, when do you expect to be completed?
So once this is awarded, he can go ahead and order all the equipment and the parts, but realistically, we're probably looking at next spring, just because of supply chain issues and everything is so backed up. And of course, we have winter coming here now.
It's here.
Yeah, it's here, yeah.
The other question I have, paying for this, are we paying 1/3, 1/3, 1/3, or are we paying everything up front?
This would be paid upfront. So
Are,
we would.
are you
right?
sure about that? I think the contractor has to complete.
Oh, I'm
We'd have to
sorry.
read the specs on
I
that.
misunderstood it.
That's what I'm looking for, up front, 1/3 and 1/3.
I don't think we'd be paying the full bill up front. We may have
No,
to
no,
pay
but-
for the generator if he has to sit on it part of the winter, but that would just be stored materials, so.
Okay, that answers my question.
You would pay up
I'm
to.
sorry, I misunderstood your question.
You would pay, Lenny, up to substantial completion, you'd pay most of the bill
Right.
then, yeah. Okay,
Anything else? You had a second, right?
we did, yeah.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. All right, next, we're considering a paving quote.
I think that's Lenny too. Are you paving, Lenny?
I think so. And it's pages and pages down.
So the paving quote. That is basically just gonna be, for those projects that we had. We had the hydrant, that we had repaired on Bancroft. There is a sewer line that we had fixed. And then there's also that valve on, Ontario and Norwood. So it's basically just having the black top repaved.
All right, so I'll make a motion, we approve the, authorize the supervisor to sign the quote from Superior Paving in the amount of $10,350.
Support.
Okay,
That'll be done this year, Lenny, before the plan?
maybe.
I have it done here, within the next couple weeks.
Okay.
Any other questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. All right, one more. When I was looking at my committee list this week, it dawned on me, or I saw that the September appointment for our wastewater plant appointment was not up to date. So I went in and checked with Lenny, and he said, son of a gun, you're right.
Per the intergovernmental agreement, we have to have those appointed, so.
So I'm recommending that Superintendent Bodinas be our representative for a 3-year term ending September 30th of '25, and that Manager Kangas be the alternate for the same 3-year period.
Support.
Okay. Any issues, guys, or good?
No, I just, when this is an approved motion, I have to send this to the city, so they have this on the books for their intergovernmental agreement.
Okay. Sounds good. I can sign it tonight or tomorrow or whatever.
No, I just have to send the minutes of that we approved the appointments.
To them,
Yeah,
okay.
to them.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, you guys are legal. All right, we're down to the CIP. Da-da-da-da. You've got the form in the packet somewhere, it's here. What do I do with it? Leave it in my office. No, it's in here. All right. The planning commission has approved this. We've kind of already made changes to it, which is fine. It's like a moving document anyway. What do you want to add, John?
The one item that was in the budget request that's not in the CIP is windows for this building. And we had put in the budget number based on windows priced at Menards. We had the discussion that we should probably look at all quality options. Menards maybe isn't always the best option. I think there's certainly a good option in certain circumstances, maybe not in this case. We also had removed the $50,000 for the wheelchair swing at this time, so that's not in the 2023 budget. I already zeroed it out in this spreadsheet. So the request was for 50, but it's zeroed out for next year. That freed up 50,000 in the budget that you could just reallocate to windows if you want to do that.
Well, and we were gonna put 10, where were we gonna put 10? We already talked about that at the work session.
Well, we did talk about the township signs.
10,000 not gonna get you much.
Well, I'll move to accept the 2023 CIP as approved by the planning commission.
As it's printed here?
Yes. Well, it'll,
Well, some of the things have changed already.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
Well,
we
it's-
probably need a clean copy.
Well, that's why I was wondering what John wanted to add. You know, he mentioned
Yeah.
the other night to Linda explaining about the allocation balance. At some point, that's what we want to try to fill in.
Right.
We want to be able to say, we already have, like in this case, when John went back and looked at the vehicle, the last 2 budget sessions, he saw that we had 52 saved, 52,000. So that's what we kind of want to do, is put some numbers with these at some point. So, like I said, the document's fluid, we can add to it, but I think we should take out and add, and probably get a new one, if we're gonna actually approve it. whether
yeah,
we
well,
wait.
I'll just withdraw then, because this is more informational at this time
Right.
then.
Yeah.
I
It shouldn't
really
be-
think you need to adopt the CIP, and then you can change it as soon as we're ready to change it.
Yeah, I think it's informational until we figure out, so we get a clean copy of what.
But if you're asking for the current allocation balance, that could take some time to gather all
No,
of the
no, no,
information.
no, that doesn't have to be done. That can be done over the next year or whatever. No, just the 23 allocation, because
Most of things.
50's out. Are we gonna put a pickleball court in somewhere? We
No,
didn't talk about that.
We said we were gonna move those to
Yeah.
24.
Okay, so
That's
that,
what I
that
put in
was
my
not
notes.
communicated to me to do in this
Oh,
spreadsheet.
Right, that's what I'm
So-
saying.
So we'll need it, so actually, this is more informational at this time.
All right. I will get with planning staff and figure out what those changes need to be. Do you want me to add the windows to it?
Yes.
Even though it hasn't been seen by the planning commission?
They can see it.
Yeah,
Add the windows and add the, John also add the proposed remodeling of
that's what it was.
the space, you know,
Yeah,
the
in the
wasted
lawn, the
space in the
office.
middle of the office.
The fishbowl.
The fishbowl, yeah. Replace that with a conference room and an offices, because it's right now, it's kind of just useless.
I never thought about that, that makes
Yeah.
sense when you start
Yeah.
thinking.
Yeah, well, the treasurer needs an office too, you know, so that could be a.
He has, the deputy
I've got
currently has
offices.
one,
Whoever,
but
whoever's not there, is there, I use their office.
Right, yeah, that's okay, but it's a spot for an office.
How many windows are we talking, John?
there's a bunch on this building. I think the original estimate was about 30,000. That was probably a Geldwin quote as far as window brand.
Well, that just sounds so cheap.
It is cheap.
You know, windows are so expensive.
okay, so-
How long out are we looking at to?
Andy walked into my office, I asked him for the price, he gave me 2 prices. One was for aluminum frames, one was for vinyl. That's what I have, it's what I put in the budget, because it's the time I had to do it. If you want the more detailed info, we can get you that. I don't know if it was all of the windows, it might have been the windows that have been getting, hit by the irrigation system, because there's more than just heat loss issues with some of them. They're getting stained by the irrigation water too.
I know there's
So
heat loss.
that doesn't sound like it's enough.
Yeah, I guess,
Personally.
yeah, I really want quality windows. I don't want to
If
be
we're gonna- we don't
replacing
wanna be
them
doing
in
it every
8
time.
years.
I don't
again.
disagree.
Yeah, so I,
If we're
yeah.
looking at improving at the most affordable, this is how these conversations start, right? We're gonna come to you with what we think is the most affordable option that meets what we think are our immediate needs. If you say we don't want the Pinto, we want
A Buick.
whatever your comparison is, Fiesta, I guess, is the modern equivalent, right? They don't make Pintos anymore. And I'm not picking on any brand either. That's just, it's the whole Geo versus Cadillac. We're not looking at Cadillac, we're looking at good quality windows that hopefully we don't have to replace for 20 years, right? I get it.
So what- I think if you share that with Andy, he'll probably come back with some other quotes.
Yeah.
I'm sure he will.
Yeah.
So if we move the pickleball court to next year and the soccer field, and add the windows,
I think the pickleball and the soccer field has to be moved just because of the,
We're not doing,
yeah.
well, we don't know
have a
about our
plan.
prop, and we don't
Right.
know about the property yet.
Put that out 2 years.
Sumptuous to even put it on there, but whatever.
Where was,
They need
where
to
was
be
the soccer
moved.
field going?
Okay, but
Yeah,
keep
nobody
in mind, the
talks
CIP doesn't have to match the budget. If we know we can't build it, then it shouldn't be in the year that we know we can't build
Right.
it.
Okay.
We need to make 23
and I think
correct.
that water source on 550, there's lots of, some educational searching for that, because Dan talked about, and we can ask him that, but talking to people and figuring out if that's really necessary, and then Lenny said some of these things that say 2023, he said they're not gonna happen in 2023, so we need to move them. That's my idea. Right or wrong?
Yeah, it needs to be updated.
It's too hard to.
Everything that Lenny has in his budget is probably going to happen in the year that it's shown, whether it's setting aside money as an annual contribution to the future purchase of, or actually purchasing. He's gonna buy a truck next year. The Bancroft and Huron lift stations, we have to do them. And it's probably not gonna get built next year, but we need to start the project next year, one way or another. Whether we get SRF funds or not, we have to get going, because the nickel and diming is now hundreds and thousands, right?
So we need to star that and say what that means to people.
No, this is just to put the money aside. This is just the allocation of how much money do we have to have
We don't
next
spend
year.
$3,500 a year on a pickup truck. We set that much
Right.
aside.
It's just the allocation is all we're looking at.
But that's set to be saved then.
Yeah,
And where does that ever show up?
that's gonna be that blank column that's already there. We don't
We
have
don't
that
have
yet.
every individual
Okay.
savings
All right,
account
well.
put together yet. We have to work on it, because we now know that that's what you expect.
This is what John and I put
This is all part
together,
of the
knowing
process.
that we had to start this. That's why that column is empty.
And it's gonna take a few years to
Yeah,
get.
it is. But for right now, we need to know what are we gonna allocate for 23. So this needs to be, before we approve it, it needs to be real.
Actually, Lenny is buying a truck next year, so there should be 25,000 shown for 2023 for the truck in water and wastewater, because it gets split 50/50.
Yeah.
So that part, I agree.
Okay,
Okay, so,
okay.
So it
So
needs to-
we'll put on the next agenda.
Needs to be updated and moved forward to the next agenda. I think, John, are you clear what you need to kind of move a little bit?
I've got a bunch of notes.
Okay.
Not sure I got them all, but we'll be a lot closer next time.
Yep, that's okay.
I got a question on the future agenda.
Yep, 11-1. Sir?
I got a question on this
Sure.
water on 553. A couple years back, that was so important, so are we just making light of it now? Because we don't.
No, the previous chief brought that up when we were first on the board. That's the first time I heard it. It's been a long discussion, trying to figure out where is the issue. So that'll be a good thing to ask the chief when we talk next week, or, yeah, next Wednesday.
So the challenge is, there isn't a good option. So what do you do? there's been hopes of getting maybe DNR funding to help build a tank or something, but I don't know if any of that's ever gonna pan out. We still need a source up there, so he's gonna continue asking for it until we find a solution. It's just not an easy solution. That's the problem.
And then you and I had decided that when we have these discussions and we decide that, in this case, we take the 50 and move it to next year. And if it doesn't happen next year, then when we're looking at 24's CIP, we move it to the next year. So it doesn't get lost.
Assuming the department head continues asking for it.
Right, but we don't wanna lose some of these things.
I agree.
That's a big part of it. So we just keep moving it until we know what's gonna happen. And if we decide it's not gonna happen, then we take it off.
On our property on 553, how far is it from 553 to the lake?
550?
550, excuse me.
It's 2 acres, I think, right? Just to the north
I'm not
of,
entirely sure what size it is, but it's a postage stamp parcel.
yeah. North
Big
of
scheme
the
of things.
road, the,
Middle Island Point.
Middle Island Point, thank you.
I was just thinking of, with the plan, taking water out of the lake and run a pipe in, and is that?
It's in residential. I mean, you'd have to go through property, maybe could get easements or something and bury a line or.
That's a good question to ask him.
The thought, back in the day when I heard about that, Gerard said to put some picnic benches down there and maybe a trash can, I don't know who'd go down and empty it, and have, some kind of a stand that, kayakers and stuff, or boaters could come up and just land, because it's so rocky in there. That's the only place that, if somebody was having trouble, that they could get to land. So that was his idea, way back, 12, 14 years
Look at
ago.
it in the future, development.
But I don't know, you'd have to look at it on a map.
It's almost only accessible by water legally,
Yeah. So I mean, and there's a lot of houses in
other
there.
than one adjoining property owner, or two.
I think these are options we can look at.
Dan might know more too than when we talk to him.
So informational needs to be updated and moved to the next agenda. So that's what we'll do.
Got it, okay. All right, then we can look at the sheriff's contract that John and Roger were talking about. I found 3 things that I think need to be changed. One's just a typo in the first paragraph. When it refers to the township, that's in quotes. So when it says the county sheriff's office here and after the sheriff, that should be in quotes too. That's just kind of a typo.
I apologize. We never got you a copy of the final version with Attorney Zappa's comments in it. That would include some additional language in paragraph 5.2.
Are you sure this isn't it? Because it didn't say draft before. 5.2 is on here.
There's an additional statement in there that the sheriff's department and the township have to meet within 60 days of the time to commit to purchasing, and within 30 days, I can't remember the exact details, but it's not in that paragraph 5.2, and it should be.
So do we
I
just,
have it here if you want it.
so do you just want to put it on the next meeting for approval, John? Just so.
It renews January 1. I apologize, that was
I mean,
my fault.
It's
Yeah.
November, we got plenty of time yet. Why don't we just do that, then we'll have the clean copy in front of us.
Yeah,
The clean version does have the sheriff in quotes, just like the township.
okay.
What was your other comment?
The contract price, 4th line down, it says on a monthly basis for
2022,
calendar.
it was,
Should be
I changed
23.
it in the final draft to 2023.
Okay.
Yep.
And then you and I just talked about the necessity, or when we met with the sheriff, about having the township supervisor get the schedule. I don't think that's necessary, as long as they communicate with you, unless the board feels.
You want to
that it's
leave it in there
necessary to
because
leave it in.
if you don't need it, your successor might want it.
But I mean, you should do that.
Okay.
You're the one working with them on a daily basis, almost.
Where was that? What paragraph?
4.2, 4th line down,
Made available to the township manager?
yeah. And even if you put and/or supervisor. But the
both want it, you
Yeah,
can
the
both get it.
supervisor doesn't deal with them on a basic, you know, I mean.
Okay,
So I'll make a motion that we put this item on the next agenda.
Support.
Those are the only things I saw. But I do remember reading that 30 days or 60 days. I probably read it on Roger's copy and it didn't end up in here.
I copied you on the
Yeah,
email, and I
that's-
have it here
That's
if
why I remember reading
you
it.
want it, but
Okay, we'll wait till next time, next November 1st.
I think we're pretty much, both parties are in agreement on the language, aside from that last little change we just talked about. And I don't think they'll have a concern if they're sharing the schedule with me versus the supervisor. We don't generally ask for it anyway on a regular basis, but if we decide at some point we do need to, then we will.
Randy did, because I know he worked with them and changed it depending on what we had going on at any given time. They would, I think they sent it to him, or he would call him or something. I remember him saying that.
I wasn't aware of that. I just thought we got 80 hours a week and it was when they had somebody available to operate our car.
No, he was,
Basically two shifts a day during the week.
in fact, one of the examples was Black Friday. They changed the shifts. I don't know, somebody came in earlier or later or something to cover that, so they would do that. He would call them and say, okay, we've got community days, so change this shift to make sure this is covered till 10 o'clock or whatever. That's probably a bad example, but,
In those situations, we can probably just ask for coverage and not have to even see what their shifts are. They
Oh,
can
yeah.
decide how to change them.
yeah.
The sheriff still has the authority to schedule the shifts. We can just request the coverage for specific circumstances, I think.
And speaking of that scheduling too, if you remember, one of the residents asked about whether or not they could have more coverage from the sheriff's department at Forestville's intersection. And I did email, well, I called and left a message, and Greg emailed me back and said, it's done. So I've seen them out there 3 times that I've been down that road. So they're either sitting there or they're driving by. So they are, he said, you know, it's done. They are taking care of that intersection more frequently, watching it. So I thought I told you that, but I wasn't sure.
They're there.
Dan?
Speaking of that intersection, and I know how the process works to get the speed limit changed, but has anybody ever contacted Ed McBroom, brought him in, and asked him to look into this? I think that's an avenue that hasn't been done, that we could possibly, through the state, get this taken care of to reduce that down to 45.
Just doing 80/20, then that's what they do.
I don't think an elected official by himself would be able to change the Department of Transportation policy. He could start the conversation, but I doubt he'd do it before the November election at this point.
Well, no, I'm not, it's not gonna happen before this November election, that's for sure. And we're hoping that he gets reelected, but, or at least I am. But something that we could possibly do in the future is to, you know,
We might have to petition or something, because we were deliberately taken out of that mix of speed limits. When we were in the old hall, I remember doing that. It used to be a triad, but it had to be unanimous.
Well,
We decided to take townships out.
they're going very, very fast. They're going faster than the speed limit. And, my husband and I rode down those roads to look at what people are talking about, and it is way too fast.
especially at
Way too
5 o'clock in the afternoon.
Well, and if the deputy's sitting there, that's not gonna hurt either.
Well,
Well,
I just thought maybe it'd be possible to petition him and see if there's anything that can be done or not. Because all he can do is say, no, there's nothing I can do.
Yeah, okay, I'll ask the question.
Okay.
Okay.
So basically, it's to get rid of the 85th percentile rule that speed limits are dictated by. That'll be a
We have to
challenge.
vote on this, that we move to the next agenda.
Oh,
We have to vote on that.
just the vote?
Just the vote.
Okay, too much talking. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. All right, Christmas tree. This is gonna be an interesting conversation. Take it away, John.
Okay, we have one chance left to have a Catch the Spirit tree lighting event in Marquette Township this year through our events committee, and that is to build a fake tree around a 40-foot utility pole by fabricating a cap on top and a ring on the bottom with hooks on it that you can string lights back and forth top to bottom in order to have a tree this year. But they would need a one-time budget amendment to accomplish it because they have to buy the materials one time and fabricate them.
Is the, pardon me,
Go ahead.
the material that they're seeking is just to fabricate the tree look
Yeah, there's a
onto the
cap.
pole. It's not for lighting, because we have that, don't we?
Right, but we may need to supplement the lights because now the whole tree is made up of lights. There's no underlying tree anymore.
Will the $2,000 do that whole thing?
To do it right, I would say no. That's just to buy the steel. My concern is if you've got a, let's call it a 25-foot span from the top of the pole to the bottom ring of just loose light strands, with the kind of winds that we have out here, they're gonna be flapping in the breeze and probably won't survive. So you have to almost string some aircraft cable from top to bottom to zip tie the light strands to, so they don't all get destroyed. And that would add some additional costs. Aircraft cable and all the fittings aren't that expensive. You can buy 100-foot rolls of that stuff for $50 or something like that. I don't know, it's a thought.
Where would this be?
Approximately the same location as where the real tree has been every year.
Still we'll put it in that, whatever you wanna call it there?
It's right off the edge of the parking lot of the mall.
I think that hole got wrecked. So, yeah, a
We
new
have to
hole.
make a new hole.
Randy?
Well, I talked with the supervisor, so basically we're just fabricating an artificial tree, that's all we're doing, buying an artificial tree. And I think I talked to the supervisor about it, and I think with the problems we've had in the past with cutting down trees and liability and all that stuff, this can be used year after year after year, and we don't have to worry about cutting trees and moving things, so I'm in support of it just to keep, because we can use it, you know, year after year after year. It's,
One other thing you should be aware of, the volunteer that has served for a long time on the events committee that agreed to fabricate this is done after this year. Actually, he's done now, but he said if you authorize this expenditure, he will get it fabricated for us.
So the previous manager also resigned from the events committee.
So who's gonna put this up? And who's gonna take it down? And where is it gonna get stored? And we have to have insurance on these people doing all this?
Insurance on these people.
Whoever's putting it up and taking it down.
If it's our staff, they're already covered.
Okay, so you're saying our staff is gonna do this?
Nothing's happening if you don't authorize this expenditure. So there's,
But
if you don't want to do it, say no, and that's the end of it.
You got a month to go, so if you wanna play around and goof around, if this is the best option we have for a tree for this year, that's your decision.
so this is really the only option?
That's your only option, unless
So
you wanna
it's-
put another tree up there.
Well.
Which we don't have
Which-
available. And I would not recommend continuing to harvest a tree in the method we've been harvesting trees.
No.
Talk
No,
about-
that was
Transporting and
talk about
re-erecting.
liability
Yeah.
and a mess. All the behind the scenes that you guys don't even hear about. Not that it's anything bad, it's just, there's an effort to doing this and trying to get somebody to donate it and how tall, cutting it, getting it
So,
over there.
Let me just put this in perspective and re-establish for your sake. I recognize when there's sensitive subjects around here, I had the authority to do this on my own. But because I know these events have been a sore subject with the township board, I brought it to you to decide. I could have just done it, but I chose not to because I want to know how you feel about it.
Okay.
There's adequate funding in the community promotions budget to do it.
Is $2,000 enough?
Not to do it the way I would recommend doing it.
Or, I
And that's
think-
including the aircraft cable to tie the light strands
What
out.
kind
But I
of
think-
dollars would you be recommending?
I would say cap it at 3,000.
I think you said that you thought the 2,000 was to fabricate it,
The
right?
2,000 was to
Or-
fabricate the metal cap and ring. Then we would need to purchase,
More lights.
and we can do that ourselves. There's aircraft cable, there's the clamps at the top and the bottom. He's talking about having hooks fabricated into this, so you just, instead of stringing lights between the hooks, you string aircraft cable and then you zip tie the lights to the aircraft cable.
You want it done right if you're gonna do it, so you can
If we're
use
gonna
it every
reuse
year.
it year to
yeah.
year, right, I agree.
Didn't we get a pole too that was donated by the BLP?
Correct. We still have to get that in
I
the
want to
ground.
give them credit for that too.
Is this something the fire department ladder truck can help with?
Maybe for the top part, yeah.
I move that we authorize $3,000 for the community promotion.
Support.
Motion and support.
As much as I don't like the idea because I am a tree guy, we live in the UP, I understand what we've gone through. I understand what has happened in the last few years, and therefore I will give you my blessing because we don't have any other options at this point. And if it's done right, it will look very nice at night.
I think we can make it look really nice and make it very easy moving forward.
Has anybody thought about a star type thing too, or? is
We
that-
already have one.
Okay, so that would work. up
That
there.
would be reused.
Okay, good. John?
I'm supporting this motion because I think that we have an added plus by doing it this way. Should the events not go on being where they're conducted now, this is a pole and lighting event that we can create right here in front of the township hall. And what we're doing is creating a mobile tree. We can relocate it if that's what it takes later.
It may only need another 40-foot pole that BLP is willing to donate again too. Because they always have old poles sitting in their yard that they're willing to donate.
Or maybe
Let's make
put
sure
it
we
in
have
a new
enough
park.
lights on it. Lots of lights.
Yeah.
'Cause
Well, that's why I said 3,000, because you
Lots
get
of
a
lights.
couple $100 worth of aircraft cable and a few more strings of lights, and I say a few, it might be a few dozen, I don't know.
Lots of lights.
I don't know how long these strands are. We'll figure that out.
Got 3,000 here, do we have 35?
How much money is in that budget? 25,000? Wow.
Well, the original events budget was 12.5, of which there's, I think, about 4,000 remaining. They needed 2,000 in addition to what they had remaining to do the steel, purchase the steel and fabricate the top cap and the bottom ring. But the community promotions also had beautification and one other item, and I have an empty binder here.
Oh, good.
So you're saying there's enough money to do it?
Correct. I think we have 5,000 budget annually just for beautification in that budget, and we've spent less than $500 this year.
We can make it happen.
So I am not a fan of artificial trees, not a fan. I am not a fan of what we've been having there either, because it's a lot of work and there's liability and lots of other pieces, I guess. That's what I
Safety
hear.
issues for sure.
Safety issues. And I agree with Dan, we need a lot of lights to make it look nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
I
not
mean, I'm
all the
talking
same
seeing
color.
this thing from outer space.
Yeah, not all the same color in the same spot, but,
If you go
I'm
up there
still not a
and talk
fan.
about it, fine.
Now I'll go back to my same thing, 3,500 over.
Are we good?
I'm gonna make it.
Yep, we're good.
What choice do we have?
Do you have a
All in
second?
favor? Yes.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. If you're opposed, don't tell me. All right, planning.
Planning Commission did not meet because our planning employees went to a conference.
Recreation,
Did not meet.
okay, we have no public. So, any announcements?
I do.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, so most of the absentee ballots had gotten out by the 7th of October. And we've been getting stragglers every day, but for the most part, everything's out. We're almost at 900 getting out, so almost a third of the township is voting absentee now, so that's interesting from where we came. We used to have about 300 people. Now we're at like 900. So, so you can come into the office and get your absentee ballot during normal business hours, or you can leave your application to get one in the drop box. We'll mail it out when we process it. The election is November 8th this year. It's the latest it can possibly be in a calendar year, so it's not going to affect our next meeting. So Saturday, November 5th, the Township Hall will be open from 7:30 a.m. in the morning to 3:30 in the afternoon to give out any absentee ballots or register you to vote. And Monday, you can get an absentee ballot before the election, but it can't leave the building. And then Tuesday's election day, polls will be open 7 a.m. to 8 p.m.
Perfect. Any more announcements?
Senior gathering is tomorrow from 1 to 3 in our, what is that called? Recreation Community Room.
Anybody else? Okay, manager's report.
All right, I have 4 items in there. The last one we already talked about, which is the tree options for the events committee. Thank you for that. We will try our best to make that artificial lighting look as nice as possible with $3,000. Very important for anyone interested to see what the DDA has been up to. They are holding 3 open houses this coming Thursday in the community room at 3 o'clock, 5 o'clock, and 7 o'clock. And it's to discuss their project priorities. That's a plan that they adopted back in August. And ultimately, they're looking for support from properties within the DDA for a millage to help fund these priorities, and a lot of it revolves around non-motorized access, corridor enhancements. We already did the pilot project at no cost to the township with a $1,000 grant. I shouldn't say no cost, it was probably a few hours of staff time and a few bucks because the seed was a little more than $1,000 by, I don't know, 25 bucks or something like that. I encourage anyone with an interest in the DDA to attend the open houses. Anyone from the public certainly can too. I will be doing a radio interview with Jim Koski tomorrow, I believe, in the afternoon. I'm not sure when it'll air, to talk about the open houses. I think Jason has already gone and done one with Mark and Walt. We did a press release that went to all of the agencies across the entire UP through Lake Superior Community Partnership. I guess that's really it. If you're interested in knowing what the DDA is up to, you have 3 opportunities this Thursday in the community room, 3, 5, or 7 p.m. That Lions Field tri-party agreement, I would assume that that will be on the attorney's report here in the coming months. We do have one request to extend the season, and we're still kind of waiting to hear back from other parties that sound like they might be interested in sharing field time there. And also, I think the high school program wants their own agreement. They're one of those 3 in that agreement. They would prefer to be on their own. And some circumstances changed there since we signed the agreement, because they have their own committee now. They did not when the agreement was signed. So the athletic director has said he would prefer that the committee handle their agreement, not the athletic department at the school. Forestville Bypass Road. We elected not to support the road commission engineer manager's recommendation to go forward with seeking funding for that project now. I know that's not intending to mean that there will never be support for it. It's just the support isn't there at the moment. I do believe, given the pressure that we know is on the table right now for development in that area, other alternatives need to be sought. And I think that you as a board probably need to authorize staff to work with the road commission to find any alternatives, either for funding to address our current system or other options that were not included in our transportation plan of the master plan. So I think you should all be thinking about that, whether it's a connection to the east or any other options, because we have something in our master plan that we're not supporting at this time. We need to have other options out there so developers know what they can come back to us with, right? We're at a predicament as staff, knowing what we should be doing, and the planning commission is going to have a tough decision to make too if there isn't adequate transportation network available for the proposed development and any future developments in the same area. So I understand why the decision was made. We just need another way forward.
Sounds like you gotta write an agenda item for one of the future meetings then to get direction.
Yeah, I had to bring it up now because I know the pressure is there and mounting daily from the developer, and I don't know what kind of position we're in with the road commission at this point. I know Jim Iwaniki was upset, but
Tough.
I know that's how you reacted. My point is, we are still partners, right? And we have to find a solution, or we need to tell a developer that they can't continue with their proposed PUD. If that's what everyone wants to say, fine.
Partners
Way to do it,
disagree.
so.
It's okay to disagree.
find a way.
We should still work together.
John, does the developer have any plans on coming and meeting with us?
We are with you as a board?
Yes.
Well, they have to follow the process. The process is to submit the PUD through the planning commission first.
Okay, there are so many unknowns on this whole project that I've got many questions, and
My recommendation would be to go to the planning commission when they submit.
They haven't,
Are they-
they haven't submitted yet.
I'm sorry?
I don't think they've submitted yet.
No, and I think the reason why is they're trying to figure out what they should submit, because the bypass road is off the table, and that was what was going to allow them to return with a significantly higher density than what the current zoning allows. And keep in mind, the PUD process is designed specifically for what they're trying to do. It's to put cluster housing in on smaller parcels so that they can preserve more open space, right? And I'm not the planning department here, but this is the experience I've had anywhere PUD residential developments have occurred. We all have a role. Mine is to advise you on what I see as the issues that have to be addressed, and that's what I'm doing now.
The next planning commission will be on the night that we meet with the planning commission, but I don't know that that's coming forward.
I would guess that,
For me, if it does come forward with the planner, or with the
Sure, and I would
1 year,
suggest that you look, Jason does post the agenda. And I'll watch too, but yeah, our board should know.
Are you getting planning
I'm sorry.
notices? Are you getting the planning packet? Well, you probably aren't, because you're not checking your email. John, are you getting
It
it?
doesn't come to my, if it came to my email, yes, I would, but it doesn't come to
No,
my
it
email.
Are you
doesn't.
getting the packet, Ernie?
No, I'm not.
Okay.
I don't even get one.
That's the first thing we need to get is, Jason's gotta put the board on his transmittal. That's the first thing.
For the email list.
Right.
Jason doesn't even let me know when the events committee is meeting.
he is, Dan, it's just you don't have access to your township email on your computer. That's the
All
problem.
he's gotta do, John, is give me I know it's going out of his way to possibly give me a text or.
I asked him to do
It's my
that.
fault, I agree it's my fault, but there's other ways that he could correspond with me, and he doesn't. Andrea had to call me yesterday and let me know that it was canceled,
Okay, let's start with that.
so.
We're all meeting on the 26th, and we'll be at 2 meetings before the planning commission meets for your next meeting. And if anything is known by then, you could pass it on, because you're gonna see all of us.
I am, huh?
Unfortunately.
Can I just say one last thing about that? There is still an opportunity to seek funding for another option other than the bypass road. If we're going to work together with the road commission, we have to figure out what the ask is going to be, or if we're in agreement with what the alternative funding request is going to be for. That's the biggest reason why I felt compelled to put it in my report this time. But that window closes very quickly with the November election coming up.
So Randy's asked that it be on the next agenda to have a discussion. Is there anything else that you need to present to us that we would have to wait 2 weeks for? Are you kind of looking for a motion tonight to at least be able to?
I'm not
move
asking for a
forward?
motion tonight, I'm asking you to be thinking about this, and hopefully I will have more information to share with you. I don't really have more information right now, other than the pressure is on to find another solution so they can build a development to the density they want to build it. I know there's people that don't want to do that, and that's fine. But this is what the developer is requesting to do on their property, and then they have to go through the process. They just know that they can't do it without the transportation issue being addressed first.
That's why I'm asking, do you just at least want a motion tonight, pardon me, tonight to move forward with working with them? That's a simple motion. And
That would be fine.
It would save 2 weeks.
That would be fine. Just make sure you're careful about how you word it so it doesn't give the Huron Woods folks the belief that you're reopening the window to something that you just closed 2 weeks ago, right?
So we're talking about the intersection, aren't we? Is
That's
that?
one thing. The intersection, there's the hairpin turn further up Forestville Road that creates issues with the other way out to 550. There's a possibility of a connector to the east, although I don't know how feasible it is. I know the developer has started looking at it. I don't know how deeply they have. The road commission ruled it out in the existing utility corridor, and I agree with them. That corridor is too cluttered with utilities, which is the purpose for it. So it would have to be somewhere other than what's clear cut right now.
So something like exploring additional transportation options with what?
The road commission.
And the developer, or just the road commission?
Well, our obligation is to the road commission first, but it's in the interest of development pressure for sure.
For future development pressure.
In the interest of future development, how's that?
Yeah, and it needs to be
General enough.
specific to the Forestville area.
It needs to be?
I think so, because that's really where the development pressure is.
So I would suggest that everyone take their car and go down there and see what this is really looks like. And there, the Ash Road is there.
What's
You
there?
can't, the Ash Road, but you can't go down the Ash Road and get out because it's blocked.
I think you can come through the Ash Road from the other end, can't you?
No, I thought, Dave said it was blocked, it's
You
barricaded.
can come so far and then it stops.
There's gates on either end. The road commission owns it, but they won't open it to public use until they've addressed safety concerns where they need guardrail.
That's what he said.
And probably signage too.
But
Curbs.
you can go down a certain amount of, into Forestville.
So if we just direct staff to explore additional transportation options with
Road
the
commission.
road commission in the interest of future development in the Forestville area.
That sounds good to me. I'll support your motion.
That gives you 2 weeks that you don't have to sit and wait. And then if you get more information in the meantime, we can put it on an 11-1 agenda.
I'd be more than happy to try calling Jim Iwaniki tomorrow saying the board is interested in looking at, working with you to look at all of the feasible opportunities
Additional transportation
that
options.
aren't associated with the bypass road.
And I thought we said that to him.
We didn't do any directive, though.
Well, we didn't make a motion, but we certainly said we were looking at that.
It's always been our interest.
Yeah, but then you
Well,
just shut
until
down
you-
everything.
Until you make a
We just
statement.
told him we didn't,
They're
we
not gonna
did
go
not
that,
support what he
As far as he's
said.
concerned, you just got shut down.
Well, in my opinion, people need to listen.
But we did not give them direction as a group, and that's the way the
Yeah.
government works. You can't just assume. He's not gonna start doing stuff on his own.
And from staff's perspective, policy governance states we should have a policy on what staff should be doing regarding this subject, right? We know one thing we're not going to do. Are you okay with us looking at all of the other options and working with the road commission to the extent we're able, hoping that maybe there's some funding available to come up with a magic solution?
Sure.
And like you
Okay.
said in your memo, we've got 150,000 that we can use. We know it's dedicated to that road right now. And if they end up fixing the road, we get the money to use it somewhere else.
Correct. If we don't have to use the money we've committed to repaving Forestville Road from 492 to Huron Woods, that money is freed up to spend in another way. And if it means helping improve the transportation network out there, and that's how you want to spend it, great,
Or it could be a match for something else too.
right? Or it could be put into Trowbridge Park, I don't care. If that's what you want to do.
Okay,
Looking
John?
at UP.
You're just looking at that thing and we're trying to make a mistake work. You know, it's gonna
Yeah.
take some,
Yeah.
because it was designed wrong to start with. They didn't go far enough to straighten it out, elevate it, and make the, instead of that sharp curve going down to Forestville like that, the whole Forestville Road should be brought up when it come down the hill before you get to Huron Woods. It just,
Everything can be done right with the right amount of money.
exactly.
Yeah, but that's
They didn't
been,
have the right amount of money.
that's been this board's mantra for a while. It's like with the windows. Let's do it right once. you know, the
I get
first
it,
time.
but this one's gonna take
Yeah, it
an
is.
earmark from Lansing, or
Probably,
some
yeah.
sort of special allocation from Lansing with this infrastructure money this is probably the last time we're gonna see it in my career here, because this was a big spend by the federal government.
And doesn't the county have money as well?
They don't.
What did they do with it?
They've
They don't
allocated
give
a
it to
lot
us,
of it.
plowing your roads all the time.
You're talking the county's ARPA
The
funds?
Yeah.
I think they committed money to the road commission to buy chip sealing equipment.
Oh. Good.
I don't think they were talking about Forestville Road intersection when this was happening.
Well, that's not their job. I mean, they're donating money, basically donating it to the childcare issue, and that's not their job either.
So you see how quickly this gets difficult for staff to know what to do? There's 7 opinions here. I need a consensus.
Well, we have a motion. Hang on, John.
There are 2 issues with regard to Forestville. The Forestville intersection needs to be addressed. I think everybody agrees with that. They don't know how, but it's the Forestville intersection that is the one thing that needs to be addressed. The second thing is, how do you get that fixed and try to address the need for fixing it and still run sewage to all the way to the developer? That is, unless they want to have septics out there, they're going to want sewerage, and they're going to want water. Water, I think we can get to them, but sewerage,
We have that figured out.
you're going to run it down and up.
It
You're
would
gonna
be a
run it
force,
through
it
the
would be
valley?
a force main all the way from a brand new lift station,
With
in
the
my
lift-
engineering opinion.
With the lift station.
Yep.
Good luck.
Done all the time?
Okay, we got a
All right,
motion and support. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
Now, can I ask John a question?
Sure.
Or do I hear? On the line ball field, are we having our agreements? Are we tying up the field too much, John? What percent is that? Are we locked, tying that up?
We have an agreement in place that 2 of the parties are asking to change. I suggest that one of them is gonna tie it up more. The other one is not going to tie it up any more than they did before this current agreement was signed, because their season is so short.
We have to come up with something saying. we
Your
can-
question is 100% on track. What is the acceptable season, and how many days in a week and how many hours a day is right for any particular group? I think one group wants actually exactly to accomplish what you just stated, and that's monopolize the field. That's the
That's
feeling I
right.
get based on the request. I shouldn't really state that without having proof, but that's the feeling I
You
get.
didn't say that. No, I just was reading that, and I could just see it coming from before, and it just bothers me that we have to take care of our youth, and we have to give those the opportunity to go play ball or something, whatever, out there.
Well, these are the
We don't
youth that
lock
wanna
the
play
kids
ball
out.
though, too,
Yeah, I know.
so.
Our youth should be allowed to do it, because their parents are paying the taxes.
I don't disagree.
Any other questions for John?
Oh, I'm also.
Okay. Would you mind reviewing our motions?
Yep. So the first motion was to approve consent agenda as presented, that was approved. Second motion was to approve the regular agenda as presented, and that was approved. Third motion was to allocate the remaining ARPA money to use to purchase a new ambulance, and that was approved. Fourth motion was to schedule a budget work session for the fire department / general fund wrap-up on October 26th at 3 o'clock, and that was approved. Fifth motion was to approve $89,000 for the Center Street generator bid award, and that was approved. The sixth motion was to approve the paving quote for $10,350, and that was approved. The seventh motion was to approve the Superintendent of Public Works as the representative and the manager as the alternate to the Wastewater Treatment Plant Advisory Board for a 3-year term. That was approved. This is an action item, but the 2023 CIP was an informational. John's going to update it for us and get it to us in the next agenda or a future agenda. That's an action item, not a motion. The eighth motion was to approve the, or no, not to approve it, but to move the 2023 contract for police for the sheriff's department to the next agenda. That was approved. Ninth motion was to approve, allocate $3,000 for a one-time funding of the Christmas tree sustainability improvements, and that was approved. And the 10th motion was to authorize staff to work with the County Road Commission to develop alternatives for the transportation network in the Forestville area, and that was approved.
Excellent. So our next meeting is November 1st, 6:30. Our next board meeting, I should say. Any comments? To wrap up, Ernie?
One thing is, looking toward the future, this is the last meeting in November, so we have 2 more meetings in October, 2 meetings in November.
And then it's a 5-week month besides.
Plus, the first meeting in December is, we have to have the budget all set, which means we have to have, 17, 18 days prior to that meeting, we have to have it advertised in the paper, something like that. So it's almost like the next first meeting in November, we have to get this set so we can move forward to get the right advertising timeframe for this.
I think we're pretty darn close that we almost should be able to make that happen, but that really depends on how the next 2 discussions go.
And historically, we have approved the budget at the first meeting in December, so that means it's posted sometime in the middle of November.
Right.
We do have to the middle, we have to the end of the year in reality, but we should be able to get it done in the current timetable.
That just popped in my mind when we're looking at all these dates coming up, and that's something we have to look at too, so.
Can you approve the budget early?
Pardon?
Can
Yes.
it be approved early?
Well, we have to post, we have to do the posting
So we need to
requirements
post
first.
it.
Okay, but it can be approved early.
Yeah, as long as you have public hearings and such with the
Okay.
notifications, that's usually why we do it December 1st.
If something happens, we still have the second meeting in December, we can do it.
Yeah.
Without calling a special meeting and that.
Dan?
I'd like to make a motion, we adjourn.
Support.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
I'm not gonna say no.
8:47. We are adjourned.
I did that